For many centuries, humanity has been trying to unravel the mysteries of these graceful predators. But how much is still unknown, hidden in their silent gazes? For example, do members of a wolf pack use telepathy to communicate with each other? Can wolves befriend bears, forming incredible alliances in the wild? And how does a single-celled parasite turn an ordinary wolf into an alpha male, taking over its will and changing its behavior? We will also see how puppies born in the wild are completely incapable of hunting without training, and how they learn this art of survival. And finally, we will try to understand whether humans can become full-fledged members of a wolf pack, crossing the boundary between the wild and civilization. So, let's begin. The wolf is the largest member of the canine family, except, of course, for some especially large breeds of dogs. And depending on the habitat, the wolf can vary greatly in size. The smallest wolves, with a body length of about 1 meter and weighing up to 15 kilograms, live in Arabia and Egypt. The largest wolves, with a body length of more than 1.5 meters and weighing from 40 to 90 kilograms, inhabit the north of Russia, Canada, and Alaska, and the male is usually 20% larger than the female wolf. Gray predators live almost everywhere. Currently, they are practically absent only in Central Europe and Great Britain. Multiple wolf species exist globally. In Russia, they are only found on Sakhalin and the Kuril Islands. Wolves have many amazing abilities. They can distinguish about 200 million different scents, while humans can only distinguish about 5 million. The enormous pressure is created by the teeth in a wolf's jaws, about 300 kilograms per square centimeter, compared to only 150 in a dog. The eyes of wolf pups are always blue. At birth, they only turn yellow by the 8th month. The light-reflecting layer in a wolf's eyes is called, in Latin, something that translates as bright tapestry. It glows in the dark and helps the animal see at night. But when it comes to this famous myth, I'm afraid I have to disappoint you. Wolves don't howl at the moon, because these sounds are a means of communication between wolves and are not meant for any kind of visual effect. Wolves howl to let others know their location, to warn about predators, or to signal that they've found prey. They use howling sounds for many reasons, and we probably won't be able to fully understand all of them. Who knows, maybe wolves have their own musical preferences and groups, just like people do. These animals have left a significant mark on human history. For example, the autoimmune disease lupus, or cutaneous tuberculosis, literally means red wolf. Because in the 18th century, doctors believed that the disease developed after a wolf bite. Vikings wore wolf skins and drank wolf blood before battle, which they brought with them to boost their fighting spirit. Adolf Hitler, whose name means leading wolf, was fascinated by wolves and sometimes demanded to be called Mr. Wolf or Conductor Wolf as a pseudonym. Wolf's Gorge, Wolf's Lair, and Werewolf were code names that Hitler used for various military headquarters. In Japanese, the word for wolf is characterized as Great God. The Aztecs used wolf liver in the treatment of melancholy as an ingredient for medicines. In addition, they would pierce the chest of a dying person with a sharpened wolf bone in an attempt to delay the date of death. In the Middle Ages, Europeans used powders made from wolf liver to relieve labor pains. The Greeks believed that if someone ate the meat of a wolf that killed a lamb, they were at high risk of becoming a vampire. The Cherokee Indians did not hunt wolves because they believed that the brothers of the slain would take revenge on them. In addition, any weapon used to kill a wolf was considered tainted. Interestingly, wolves helped us learn more about the so-called leadership gene, which turned out to be linked to the single-celled parasite toxoplasma. Anthropologists from the United States studied how a person with toxoplasma becomes a successful businessman. Here is a quote from anthropologist Stefani Johnson from the Leeds School at the University of Colorado. Such people do not experience the fear of failure that prevents others from starting their own business. A kind of gene leadership from the parasite is received not only by people. Infected wolves quickly turn into alpha males, and their chances of creating their own pack become higher. How many times would you have thought? 46 times. Researchers observed wolves living in Yellowstone National Park in areas overlapping with the range of pumas. These felines, like many others, including domestic cats, are favorite hosts of a single-celled parasite, which is why such proximity puts wolves at risk of infection. As expected, in those parts of the reserve where the density of pumas was higher, wolves were more often affected by toxoplasmosis. However, in some cases, the parasite actually helps its host to significantly advance up the social ladder. As the authors note, toxoplasmosis in previously healthy individuals often leads to an increase in dopamine and testosterone levels. It is known that these substances have a significant impact on both sexual and social behavior. Scientists tried to understand exactly how this influence affects populations of wild mammals. As a result, it turned out that individuals infected with toxoplasmosis often choose two rather risky behaviors for this animal: migration and attempts to become a leader. Wolf packs are social animals, not just enduring long periods of solitude. Outside the pack, they have a higher risk of death from human actions or attacks by other large predators. In winter, it's also very difficult for them to hunt and feed themselves alone. That's why solitary migration is an extremely high-risk undertaking. For a young wolf, attempting to become the leader carries even more risks. Normally, the pack leader does not attack other wolves within the pack. If another contender for leadership appears, the leader may show aggression towards him and may even kill him. In Yellowstone Park, intraspecific conflicts are the most common cause of wolf deaths. Deaths caused by humans or vehicles are less frequent. Hunters only rank second in the number of fatal outcomes, while injuries sustained during hunts for large hoofed animals are only third. The study of wolf biological samples showed that among individuals infected with toxoplasmosis, the likelihood of becoming a migrant was 12 times higher than that of a healthy wolf. In the case of pack leaders, this ratio was even more striking. For a toxoplasmosis-infected wolf, the chances of achieving this status were 46 times higher than for an uninfected animal. The authors of the study concluded that the increase in testosterone levels in infected wolves could lead both to achieving a higher social status and to a greater chance of being chosen by females during sexual selection. Just take a look at these shots from a camera trap in Yellowstone National Park. Which of these wolves is infected with the parasite? This chart displays wolves infected with toxoplasmosis in red and healthy wolves in black. The more often the range of female wolf packs overlapped with the range of cougars, the more carriers of toxoplasma there were among them. The more wolves that overlapped with cougars territorially were infected, the more often the cougars themselves became infected as well. The mechanism of parasite transmission between these two species is not yet fully understood by researchers, but the fact is that a higher density of cougars increased the likelihood of wolves becoming infected. Interestingly, something similar is observed in humans. Evolutionary biologist Marcus Rantel conducted thousands of tests and discovered that people infected with toxoplasma are much more attractive to others than healthy individuals. Toxoplasma-carrying men have double the normal testosterone levels. The parasite also makes the face more symmetrical and the body slimmer by manipulating hormones. It might seem, why help a person in their personal life? Toxoplasma is also transmitted sexually, which many people are aware of and have a plan to prevent. Then why not deliberately introduce into your brain a parasite that makes a person braver and more attractive? It would seem to be just right for our crazy age, when biohackers amaze those around them with their experiments. Some lose weight with the help of tapeworms, others strengthen their immunity with frog venom or fly agaric mushrooms. However, you shouldn't do this. And here's why. In many patients with schizophrenia, we have found toxoplasma. The parasite disrupts dopamine production in the brain, and this leads to the rapid development of psychosis. If there was a predisposition to them, in healthy people, this simply causes unreasonably risky behavior. There is also a study according to which, among people with schizophrenia in Moscow, there are about twice as many toxoplasma carriers as among healthy people. Latest scientific data suggests toxoplasmosis increases the likelihood of schizophrenia, contrary to previous beliefs. But let's return to our episode's heroes, the wolves. Are they the hunted, or the hunters stalking their prey? A wolf can reach speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour, and during short sprints, it can even accelerate to 65 kilometers per hour. When moving, the wolf makes very calculated use of the features of the terrain, using various kinds of natural cover. Without changing its pace, the animal uses even the slightest opportunity to take cover, even in open areas. In places where the wolf is constantly pursued, it knows well the hunter's capabilities and, when escaping, skillfully chooses its escape routes, pace, and distance. When moving, it puts its weight not on the whole paw, but only on its toes. That is why such digitigrade predators are excellent at maintaining body balance in any conditions. With the whole paw. The animal only touches the ground when it lies down or lowers itself. There is stiff, bristly fur and blunt claws on the paws, which helps maintain balance even on very slippery surfaces. When wolves travel, they move in a single file, trying to step exactly in each other's tracks. And sometimes even experienced hunters and zoologists cannot determine how many wolves have passed along this path, 5 or 15, and in such a formation, wolves are capable of covering up to 100 kilometers in a single night. In this regard, it is very useful to examine the history of a certain meme that depicts a wolf pack on the move. A few years after this image appeared online, it gained quite a lot of popularity. Various memes were made from it, the most famous of which featured Cherstianoi Volchara, leading the pack as if he were divinely inspired. However, the photographer Aaron Huey, who took this shot in a national park in Alaska, later explained that the leaders were actually the male and female parents of the pack. In fact, the mother was leading, and the father was simply following her. This shattered many stereotypes. It turned out that the formation of wolves varies depending on the situation, and in this particular case, in snow of such depth, only the strongest member of the group can pave the way. There is another similar shot that became a meme. According to the description, the first 3 wolves are supposedly old and sick, followed by 5 of the strongest wolves, then part of the pack that they protect, and then another 5 strong wolves. The last one is the leader, who makes sure that no one falls behind. Being a leader doesn't mean being in front. The conclusion is that being a leader means taking care of your team. Photographer Chedden Hunter took the photo. He was in a 2011 documentary film. In the original voiceover, it was said that this pack hunted bison in northern Canada. The alpha female was not running at the back, but at the head of the pack, making a trail through the deep snow. The other wolves followed her path to save their strength. Actually, dividing wolves into alpha, beta, and gamma is not entirely correct. The concept of the alpha wolf became firmly established thanks to the book Wolf, Ecology and Behavior of an Endangered Species, written in 1968 by the American biologist David Meck. And over time, it turned out to be incorrect. In addition, he published about 380 scientific papers and 100 popular articles about wolves and other wild animals. Here are the scientist's exact words. Although most of the information in the book is still accurate, much of it is outdated. In the last 40 years, we've learned more about wolves than in all previous history. Alpha implies competition with others, and becoming the best wolf by winning contests or battles. However, most wolves who lead packs achieved their position simply by mating and producing pups, who then became their pack. In other words, they are simply the parents, and the other wolves in the family are mostly their children. A wolf is fed not only by its legs, but also by its teeth. In a wolf's mouth, there are 42 teeth. 20 are located in the upper jaw and 22 in the lower. The canines are designed for grabbing and holding prey, while the other teeth are for tearing it into pieces and crushing bones. A wolf's teeth can withstand a load of more than 10 megapascals, and teeth play an important role in a wolf's life, and their loss can be fatal for the predator. A wolf's sense of smell, hearing, and vision are also highly developed. Wolves mark the boundaries of their hunting territory with scent, visual, and sound markers. As for scents, they are clear. Any animal can see and smell them. And for those who don't pick up the scent, wolves leave scratches and scrapes on trails, fallen trees, and lone stumps, while they notify their neighbors of their rights by howling. The wolf feeds on various animals and some plant foods. Its main diet consists of wild hoofed animals, and unfortunately for shepherds, also domestic animals, depending on their availability. Despite their preference for hunting large animals, polar wolves in the summer pay attention to lemmings, eggs, and chicks of breeding birds. In the tundra, young wolf pups gladly catch and eat a variety of insects, especially beetles. Unlike the widespread myths and fairy tales where the wolf is depicted as constantly wandering through the forest in search of prey, the reality is that it spends most of its time resting. The wolf becomes active only when searching for food, covering significant distances, on average 15 to 20 kilometers a day, which takes about 2 hours. The rest of the time, wolves prefer to rest and doze. It is also worth noting that the predator rarely travels alone. There are lone wolves, which are called non-territorial, not possessing their own territory. Usually these are old, sick individuals, or those who, for some reason, do not fit into the pack. They wander through areas belonging to other packs and can be chased away by them. If such wolves find free territories, they can occupy them. However, these wolves often cannot cope with hunting large wild animals and prefer to hunt domestic ones, staying close to villages. In spring and summer, wolves live in pairs. In autumn, they form whole family groups, and in winter, they unite into packs, the size of which depends on the characteristics of the area where they live. Usually, a pack consists of 2 to 15 individuals, in most cases up to 8, but sometimes up to 20 or even 30 animals. These packs represent family groups that include male and female parents of different ages, adult wolves, yearlings, adult offspring, and newcomers. Wolf families may not include yearlings if they decide to leave the group. In spring and summer, when the adults are caring for the pups, the yearlings temporarily live separately on their parents' territory. In the fall, if they haven't formed their own pair or for other reasons, they rejoin their parents and the new offspring. A yearling who decides to stay in the pack and become a loyal helper to the leader usually remains in this status until the age of 3, after which it is more correct to simply call him an adult wolf. The youngest members of the family who have not yet reached 1 year of age are called pups. Usually there are 3 to 6 of them in the pack. All pups are under the protection of the older members of the pack, follow its rules, and obey the leader. Wolf packs usually consist of closely related individuals, but sometimes wolves accept outsiders, especially if, for example, the pack has lost its dominant male or part of its members. Wolves restore ecosystems. In 1995, 14 wolves were released in Yellowstone National Park in the United States of America to control the reproduction of elk, which had caused serious damage to the local flora by eating trees and bushes. Paradoxically, in 1926, the wolf population was completely exterminated in this region under the pretext of preserving the elk. Of the elk population, vegetation began to recover, and in 6 years the number of trees in the canyon and ravine areas increased 5-fold. This process led to the return of beavers and otters to the park, as well as a decrease in the jackal population. Thanks to the influence of wolves, the increased number of hares and mice, in turn, brought hawks, ferrets, and foxes to the park. Grizzly bears returned to the park, attracted by the growth of shrubs and berry plants that they feed on before hibernation. Even the riverbeds changed. The banks were reinforced by the overgrown trees and shrubs, preventing erosion. This story serves as an example of how human intervention in nature can have negative consequences. Many, however, continue to believe that eliminating predators is necessary without delving into the complex interconnections of natural ecosystems. Wolves on wild ungulate populations is broader than just eliminating the weak and sick individuals. In ungulate populations, the age group ratios change, and the victims become the non-productive part of the populations. As a result of their death, more food remains. For mature, physically healthy animals, living conditions improve, and, contrary to expectations, the fertility of hoofed animals increases. Thus, the latest research in the field of wolf ecology and behavior has revealed the beneficial impact of this predator on ecosystems and uncovered mechanisms that favor hoofed animal populations. Animals choose a territory that is safe for them, where they can search for food and raise their offspring. This is especially important for wolves, where the survival of the pack depends on the decisions of the leader. However, the sudden appearance of a bear, for whom there are no boundaries, can disrupt the wolves' idyll. This video was filmed in Yellowstone National Park, where a pack of wolves was hunting a herd of elk. At this time, the grizzly bears were watching them, waiting to take advantage of the wolves' exhaustion and steal their prey. This type of parasitism, known as kleptoparasitism, demonstrates how one animal steals resources from another. The bear realized that it could get an easy meal without putting in much effort. The wolves, tired from hunting, can't compete and are forced to wait until the bear finishes eating. For the grizzly, a fresh moose carcass is a valuable source of fat and protein, perfect for preparing for winter hibernation. This lifestyle seems convenient for the bear. It makes finding resources easier. Wolves hunt, bears feed, creating a mutually beneficial coexistence. Besides hunting, bears prefer berries. However, moose are also fond of berry bushes, reducing their numbers. The appearance of wolves in the area has a positive effect, reducing the moose population and consequently increasing the number of berries available for the bear. And yet, sometimes the relationship between wolves and bears is not limited to hostility. In 2013, a unique case of friendship between a she-wolf and a bear was recorded. Finnish photographer Lassi Rautiainen captured a pair of young animals who spent at least 10 days together. These two predators apparently hunted together and shared their prey. Perhaps both were left alone and found understanding and support in each other in the harsh, natural environment. Although such cases are unique, they allow us to take a new look at the relationships between predators in nature, where competition for resources usually prevails. Here is another case of friendship between a wolf and a bear. A camera trap in a national park in southeastern Alaska captured a simultaneous attack by a brown bear and a wolf on a female moose with her calf. First, the bear attacked the moose, after which the wolf chased after the calf. Most likely, the predators were not acting together. However, the wolf could have been watching the bear and waited for it to distract the moose in order to attack the unprotected calf. The camera was unable to capture how this dramatic scene ended. However, zoologist Rick Steiner, who has worked in Alaska for several decades, suggests that the simultaneous attack by the bear and the wolf was not successful. Adult moose are large and strong animals that can fight back even against top predators. Most likely, the moose cow fought off the attack of the bear, who looks young and not very experienced, and then chased the wolf away from her calf. Depending on the hunting method, wolves easily change their strategies, skillfully using weather conditions and the landscape to their advantage. Interestingly, less than half of the pack actively participate in the hunt. Usually, this half includes the youngest individuals who only observe and learn from the experienced members of the pack. The roles in the hunt are distributed depending on experience and skills. Fast and light females take on the role of herding dogs, directing and scaring the prey, while strong but slower males deliver the decisive blows. Alphas determine the target of the hunt for the pack, or make the decision to end the hunt in case of failure. It's important to note that this happens without explicit commands, creating the impression of a single organism or a telepathic connection between the wolves. Their main goal is to pursue and corner the prey, and this process can last for a long time. Unlike some predators capable of making quick strikes from ambush, wolves show patience. They can wait in ambush for up to 30 hours. For example, when using tactics while hunting beavers, where the prey dives into the water, wolves have to wait for the right moment on the shore. Moreover, when waiting, wolves choose the downwind side, knowing well that beavers rely on their sense of smell to avoid predators. When it comes to bears, wolves use special methods. They often attack bear cubs, but only if they are not under the protection of their mother or safe up in a tree. But even in the presence of a mother bear, wolves may dare to attack. Usually, some wolves distract the mother bear, allowing others to snatch the cub. Observations show that even large bears can be afraid of a pack of wolves. Look at this. In Japan, they use robot wolves to protect against bears. These monsters are very effective against bear attacks and produce 60 different sounds, ranging from wolf howls to human speech and heavy machinery noises. American scientists spent several years, almost daily, observing from an airplane the interactions between wolves and moose on one of the large islands of the Great Lakes. Moose became the main food source for wolves in winter. On average, only 1 out of 20 wolf hunts for moose ended successfully. During the pursuit of a moose, wolves tested its endurance, literally checking its strength, and once they were convinced that it was healthy, strong, and not going to give up without a fight, they would give up hunting it and move on to another, more vulnerable target. Killing such a powerful animal turned out to be an extremely difficult task for the wolves. Attacks by gray predators on moose not only rarely succeeded, but also posed a danger to the wolves themselves. Moose, defending themselves with such force, could strike with their hooves so hard that it could lead to the death of a wolf. Therefore, the predators chose their victims carefully, preferring to attack those that were sick, had already been attacked by hunters, weakened by disease, parasites, or hunger, as well as young animals up to 1.5 years old or old animals. They could also attack wild boars, but this type of hunting was not a priority for them, considering the potential dangers. Sometimes, weather conditions favorable for wolf hunting occur, such as deep snow with a crust or ice, which significantly hinders the movement of hoofed animals. In such cases, predators may hunt in excess, killing more prey than they need for nourishment. For example, entire herds of roe deer or mountain goats, as well as other animals. The predator's instinct to hoard food for potential future hardships comes into play here. In such situations, selectivity is absent. They attack everyone indiscriminately. Most of the prey is distributed among small predators, birds, and other scavengers. But wolves can also get their share in winter. The ability to find carrion plays a particularly important role in the flight of crows and magpies, and by their calls, they determine where prey has been found. That is why wolves are considered the orderlies of the forest. It is widely known that bears love to eat berries, but few people know that wolves are also interested in blueberries, lingonberries, and rowan berries. During the period of active puppy growth at the end of June, it is often possible to observe wolves grazing in the swamps, much like cows. There is no doubt that they eat berries not only because they are hungry, but also because they simply like them. They also like strawberries. Predators eat grasses too. In the steppes, they often raid melon patches, eating watermelons and melons, satisfying both their hunger and thirst, as they require regular and abundant drinking. Wolf species. The wolf, as is known, belongs to the family of canids or wolves. This family is not very large. There are 14 genera and about 40 species of canids. This family includes all foxes, Arctic foxes, jackals, coyotes, raccoon dogs, and ordinary dogs as well. They all belong to this family. However, the wolf genus doesn't contain many species. Among mammals, the wolf genus is one of the smallest. It includes only 6 species: the wolf, coyote, common jackal, Ethiopian jackal, striped jackal, and black-backed jackal. But there are about 30 subspecies of the gray wolf alone. In 2008, researchers from Stanford University discovered that mutations associated with the appearance of black fur are found only in dogs. Thus, black wolves are nothing more than descendants of hybrids. Most often, such wolves are found in North America. And here are the most interesting species of wolves: the Ethiopian wolf. Because of its small size, this species is also called the Ethiopian fox or jackal. This long-legged animal with a sharp muzzle and bright red coloring lives in small territories in East Africa. The beauty of this species is enhanced by the white coloring of its throat, chest, and the inner side of its limbs. Ethiopian wolves live at an altitude of 3,000 meters above sea level. Lower down, in a hotter climate, this animal species cannot survive. The polar wolf is one of the most beautiful and rare representatives of the animal world on our planet. The very name of the species suggests that this wolf has chosen the Arctic as its habitat. The habitat, where snow lies constantly and the polar night lasts for 5 months of the year, has shaped the habits and behavior of the polar wolf. A wolf with a beautiful white coat can live in low temperatures. The polar wolf, due to circumstances, can go months without seeing daylight and can go for long weeks without food. Polar wolves live in packs of 7 to 10 individuals, which are led by an alpha. There are also lone wolves who find their own territory and protect it from other polar wolves. The Melville Island wolf is a subspecies of the beautiful and graceful wolf found on the Arctic islands of North America. It got its unusual name, Melville, from one of the islands where it lives. Among its relatives, it stands out for its beautiful white and grayish-white fur. Melville wolves hunt in packs, chasing musk oxen and large northern deer. In search of food, northern deer travel enormous distances of thousands of kilometers. Wolves are forced to migrate after the herds of deer. Like the polar wolf, it originally lives in its natural habitat, since there is no competition with humans there. The red wolf is an animal that is under threat of extinction and is listed in the Red Book. Hunting these beautiful and unusually colored animals is prohibited in many countries, including in the territory of the Russian Federation. This is a fairly large wolf by its size, and its appearance originally combines features of a wolf, a fox, and a jackal. A distinctive feature from other wolf species is its thick reddish fur and an unusually fluffy long tail for a wolf. Red wolves are mentioned in Kipling's book under the name Red Dogs, dangerous to any inhabitant of the jungle, wolf or man. Although wolves are not the main carriers of rabies, they can contract it from raccoons and foxes. Unlike other animals, which become lethargic and disoriented when infected, wolves instantly become enraged. Many cases of attacks on people are provoked specifically by rabies. The plague, which devastated Europe in the Middle Ages, became the cause of tense relations between people and wolves. In those times, corpses were much more quickly disposed of by wolves rather than by fire or burial underground. Such burial methods gave entire generations of wolves a taste for human blood. It is likely that from that time on, wolves included human flesh in their diet, and in the folk legends of many European peoples, they became the main enemies of humans. If you have seen the movie The Grey, you might perceive an encounter with a predator in the wild as the end of your existence. But how realistic is this actually? Professor Daniel McNulty, a researcher of wolves in the wild, states that wolves, upon seeing a group of people, would prefer to run away as far as possible. They will not attack everyone who approaches their den, and even more so, they will not seek revenge. McNulty emphasizes that the relationship between wolves and humans in the wild is not as frightening as it is sometimes portrayed in movies. A wolf will likely flee from a person sitting by a campfire. The scientist-biologist Leonid Krushinsky wrote the following: 30% of wolves in the central part of Russia have the potential to attack humans, but all wolves living in their natural environment have a powerful block that suppresses their aggression. This is a passive defensive reaction, an innate fear of humans. Even in wolves raised in captivity, and having lost part of their natural fear of humans, the passive defensive reaction usually dominates. Most of them, when an unfamiliar person approaches the cage, retreat to the back corner. Zoologist Dmitry Bibikov wrote about the controlled extermination of wolves as follows: a bear that kills livestock and sometimes attacks humans is not declared a predator subject to destruction. The tiger, which poses an undeniable danger to humans and domestic animals, is under strict protection. Of course, when a report comes in about a wolf attacking a person, emergency measures must be taken, just as with attacks by other wild animals. However, these cases are extremely rare and were observed mainly after bloody wars, when human corpses in huge numbers were available for wolves to eat. Keeping wolves as pets is becoming increasingly popular. Only in the United States of America, according to various estimates, hundreds of thousands of wolves live in homes. Wolves can be less predictable and manageable than dogs. A wolf pup under the age of 1 is usually not aggressive toward strangers, although their aggression increases with age. Especially during the mating season, males can be more aggressive and harder to manage than females. Wolves are difficult to keep in standard enclosures because they can quickly learn how to open latches. Just by watching how people do it, a wolf cannot be tamed or made into a guard dog. It is afraid of strangers and will hide from them rather than bark. Although wolves are trainable, they lack the submissiveness of dogs. Usually, they do not respond to coercive methods the way dogs do. They start to become fearful, irritable, and resistant. Even when a certain behavior has been repeated several times, a wolf can get bored and will ignore subsequent commands. There are also wolf-dog hybrids, and attitudes toward them vary from country to country. Here are a few examples. More than 40 years ago, back in 1981, the International Cynological Federation registered a new breed, the Saarloos wolf dog. The Dutch cynologist Lander Saarloos began experiments on crossing wolves and dogs back in the mid-1920s, and later his wife and daughter continued his work. In 1982, the wolf dog was also bred in the Czech Republic. The cynologist Karl Hartl, who worked at a military dog kennel, managed to cross a Carpathian she-wolf with a male dog from the kennel. The hybrid was named the Czechoslovakian wolf dog. Over time, the cynologist obtained permission to export representatives of this breed abroad. But the conditions for purchasing puppies were very strict, and the prices were high. Such strict rules are explained by the desire to protect the breed from uncontrolled breeding. However, in Finland, for example, several years ago, the sale, advertising, and keeping of wolf dog hybrids was banned. Wolf dogs are considered an alien species in the country. Currently, there are about 1,000 wolf dogs in Suomi. Those who managed to acquire this breed of animal before the ban were allowed to keep them. Wolf dogs retain the primitive instincts of a wolf, and the danger of this hybrid to humans is primarily explained by their wolf-like temperament. Instincts can kick in at any moment, and the animal is capable of easily displaying aggression typical of wild animals. These are the kind of eloquent news stories you can see about these hybrids. In the United States of America, a pack of domesticated wolf dogs tore their owner to pieces. The woman was breeding wolf and dog hybrids, wolf dogs, which are not banned for domestication in the United States of America. The American woman kept 9 wolf dogs in her house at once. The animals had lived peacefully with the woman for years. But one day, something provoked the domesticated pack, and they attacked their owner, tearing her to pieces. In Russia, wolf dogs mainly serve at the border or in the internal troops. Initially, the project for breeding and studying wolf and dog hybrids in Perm was classified. In the list of potentially dangerous dog breeds published by the Ministry of Internal Affairs, wolf dogs as a separate breed and wolf dog hybrids are listed as 2 separate items. Over 16 years, 46 wolf dogs were bred. That's 5 generations. Since the late 2000s, wolf dogs have been used to guard the Chinese and Mongolian borders of Russia. Border management, the Federal Security Service and government agencies also worked with this breed. It seems that it's very difficult for humans to coexist with wolves in general, but there are still people who have managed to befriend them. Let me introduce you. Andrei Musienko is the author of a YouTube channel who is building an unusual place called Arctic Park, not far from St. Petersburg, with conditions close to natural ones for keeping the largest wolves in the world. Now, it is home to a black Canadian wolf named Akila, a she-wolf named Furia, a wolf pup named Bratish, Voland Olita, and a West Siberian Laika named Taiga. Black Canadian wolf Akila. Akela appeared in Andrei's life in 2016, while the hunting Laikas were inherited from his father, who is a professional hunter. At the moment, Andrei is working on breeding the Voland breed. Together with the Arctic Wolf team, Andrei officially registered the Voland breed, which has been developed since 1974. Alexander Zubov, Mikhail Ovcharenko, and Andrei himself. Kirill Potapov is another extraordinary person who has been fanatically in love with animals since childhood. When he came home from a walk, his parents would always search him to see if their son had brought a mouse or a snake in his pocket. I used to read books about animals voraciously and subscribed to the magazine Young Naturalist. Even in a school essay, he expressed his dream of becoming a provider and protector of animals. As an adult, he visited numerous world-renowned parks and nature reserves, he says. His interaction with predators began when Kirill first bought Canadian wolves named Alpha and Ugolyok, and then they were joined by a polar she-wolf from the Ijevsk Zoo and a Kela from Ivanovo. They offered the Siberian breed, but lack enough enclosures for them. Now, Potopov's wolves live on the territory of the animal shelter with birds of prey in the village of Kashino, not far from Yekaterinburg. The wolves are accompanied by 2 husky dogs, a lynx named Dakota, and 2 roe deer that were found in the forest by local residents and raised by the center's staff. The businessman personally constructed the predator enclosures and houses, claiming he consulted with Americans. There is no similar experience in Russia. He also had to read English literature. Potapov posts daily about the wolves on Instagram, where he has around 100,000 followers. Only 1% are people from Yekaterinburg, 15% are from Russia, and all the rest are foreigners. Turkey is in first place, where the wolf is the national animal. There are Americans, including biologists who are like-minded, from Switzerland, Italy, Brazil, and the Seychelles. I want to break stereotypes and show the true face of the wolf. Fairy tales often depict this animal as a human foe, but that's not accurate, according to Potapov. For example, no one knows that wolves suffer from anthropophobia, that is, a fear of humans at the genetic level, and neophobia, a fear of new smells and new objects. I communicate with American biologists from the International Wolf Center, who have been studying these animals since 1965. So, in the United States of America over 100 years, only 2 cases of wolves attacking people have been recorded, and those were animals with rabies. If you don't threaten them, they won't attack you, only if they're defending themselves. Sean Ellis is a well-known British zoologist, author, host, and the main character of the program Life with the Wolf Man. To study animals, Sean forsook civilization's comforts and lived with a wolf pack, becoming its leader for a while. He can understand wolf howls, recognizes each individual by face, and perfectly imitates all wolf behaviors. To remain part of the pack, Sean ate what the wolves ate, slept with them on bare ground, and didn't use regular cleaning products. To conduct truly unique research, Sean had to become a wolf while still remaining human. Sean's interest in the lives of wild animals awakened in him during childhood, when he lived on his family farm in Norfolk. And the first subjects for his observations were foxes and badgers. Sean learned from them how to navigate at night by sounds and developed a truly animal-like sense of smell. Sean started as a gamekeeper's apprentice, served in the Marines, and after returning from the Army, focused on zoology and animal observation. Ellis began working with wolves in 1990 in the United States, in the state of Idaho. He lived for 7 years in a Native American tribe, observing wolf packs at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. He recorded wolf howls and learned to understand and reproduce them. He recognized each individual wolf by face and concluded that wolves are incredibly intelligent animals with amazing instincts. It was in Idaho that Sean first tried to live with wolves in the wild, and the animals accepted him. In 2005, Ellis bought 3 newborn wolf pups from hunters, whose parents had been killed, and went into the forest with them. At that time, Sean was already considered an authoritative wolf specialist, was married, and had 4 children. And now, in his pack living in the Devonshire National Park, there are already 17 wolves. Once, he was the leader for the wolf cubs, but when they grew up, one of them challenged Sean by taking the best piece of meat. The man submitted to the wolf, and he was not driven out of the pack. Currently, Sean Ellis is a world-renowned scientist, the author of the bestsellers Talking with Wolves and The Spirit of the Wolf. He conducts his research in the United Kingdom at the Combe Martin Wildlife Park, where his pack lives. Sean aims to restore the wild wolf population in Great Britain, which was exterminated there in the 17th century. Wolves are often seen as ruthless predators, according to Sean. That's not true. I love wolves like my own family. They are a big, loving family to me. But for dessert, we have prepared another amazing story for you from a person who can tell about his life with wolves in Russian. In Georgia, which the ancient Persians called Gorgistan, meaning the land of the wolf, lives and studies animal behavior. Doctor of Biological Sciences Yasin Badritsi. An acquaintance describes him with a short phrase: an ethologist who lived for several years in a wolf pack. Yasin Badritsi decided to study wolves not from textbooks, but in the wild at the end of the 60s. Yasin Badritsi had recently graduated from Tbilisi State University's Faculty of Biology and started working at the Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic Academy of Sciences Institute of Physiology. However, ethology is a field discipline of zoology that studies genetically determined animal behavior. In the Soviet Union, ethology and genetics were deemed pseudosciences. Wolves, seen as enemies of socialist animal husbandry, were mass exterminated. Thus, Badritsi could only conduct underground research, but neither this nor the obvious risk of close encounters with a wild animal stopped the scientist. The scientist joined the wolf pack in January 1974. The experiment took place in the Borjomi Reserve Forestry. At that time, wolves were being killed even in protected areas through shooting, poisoning, trapping, and snaring. For each wolf killed, rangers were paid 50 rubles, while the average salary was only 15 rubles. This was a serious financial incentive for exterminating predators. But Badritsi paid off the rangers and asked them to stay away from the areas where his wolf family resided, ensuring they wouldn't disrupt his research. But how can an unarmed person gain the trust of a pack of predators? After all, Badritsi had no firearms. This is a weapon. A person becomes bolder. He takes risks, complicates the situation. Knowing that he has a gun behind his back, he says, Yasin wasn't a wolf, but lived next to a wolf family. First, he figured out their main trails. Then he got them used to his scent. All of this took 4 months. Well, after that direct encounter, when the alpha wolf, the male, and the man looked each other in the eyes from a distance of 5 meters, he became one of their own. The scientist slept in the same place as the wolves and even hunted with them. The main prey for the wolves of the Borjomi Reserve were deer. The man didn't attack the deer. That was the dominant male's job. He only tracked, cutting off the deer's escape route with the young subordinate wolves. The young Badritsi ran quite well, not falling far behind the swift animals. After eating, the wolves rewarded him by leaving some meat on the deer's bones. The scientist, unlike his gray friends, didn't gnaw the bones clean. He carefully cut pieces of meat and cooked them over a fire by the river, to avoid disturbing the pack with the smoke smell. But usually, he subsisted on canned stew, lard, and bread, brought by a friendly gamekeeper bi-weekly. He occasionally returned to Tbilisi, no more than once every 3 months for a few days, to avoid going completely wild. Otherwise, the pack would forget him. Once, returning from an unsuccessful hunt with the pack, the scientist accidentally disturbed a bear resting by a boulder. And this could have been the end of the future professor's research. The bear jumped up and reared on its hind legs merely half a meter away. What would happen next was uncertain. If he so much as swings his paw once in my direction, there won't be anything left of me. Either I cried out in surprise and fear, or the bear made some kind of sound. The wolves reacted to this. They rushed in and attacked the bear. One of them grabbed Borov by the heel, and he ran away in shock. Wolves usually avoid bears due to their superior strength. Protecting them shows immense trust. The man, despite being a different species, became a full member of the pack. 2 years passed this way. What was Badritsi able to learn about the life of wolves thanks to such a unique experience? A wolf pack is a family not only in the biological sense. The story with the bear shows how wolves have a well-developed sense of mutual assistance, and not just along the parent-child line. Altruism was not invented by humanity. Wolves can sacrifice themselves for their pack members. Fights, young wolves aged 1 or 2, take good care of the pups born this year. They also look after the old wolves, picking out fleas and bringing and regurgitating food for them. If someone shows too much aggression, they are expelled from the hunting zone. Wolves are not born predators, they become them. If an untrained wolf ends up in a flock of sheep, it will simply panic. It has no idea that this is food, explains Badritsi. Parents teach gradually. First, they bring meat, then meat with skin so that the pups remember the smell of the animal. Then they bring them to freshly hunted prey, teaching them to track and follow a trail. All of this is taught within the pack. A wolf born in a zoo won't be able to feed itself even in a forest teeming with deer. When hunting, wolves use a connection between each other that could be called telepathic. There is sound communication, scent communication, visual communication, but there is also some kind of non-verbal connection. While hunting, it's like they consult with each other by looking into each other's eyes, holding this fixed gaze. And then the animal turns, goes, and does exactly what turns out to be the right thing to do. At that moment, Bodridze himself encountered it while hunting. As if by instinct, he moved exactly to the place where it was easiest to block the prey's path. And he also began to see precisely what the wolves were doing behind his back. However, this ability disappeared after returning to civilization. So how did it all end? As often happens in life, the family idyll did not last long and ended tragically. After 2 years living with wolves, Yasin Bodridze returned to the city. He recalls they saw him off with a mournful howl, and a year later, when he returned to the Borhomi Reserve, it turned out that poachers had killed almost 60 wolves, including those he had lived with. In his research, Bodridze had to interact with wolves and gain their trust more than once. But in interviews, he says that no other pack touched his soul like that first one. For the last 10 years, the scientist has done all they can to protect the wild wolf population in Georgia. He bought wolf pups from hunters, raised them, carefully reproducing the rituals of teaching them to hunt and other skills of wildlife, and then released them into the forests. Meanwhile, he had to teach them to fear humans to prevent them from entering villages and attacking sheep. Thus, wolves raised in captivity returned to the wild. Yasin Bodridze stopped raising wolves in 1998, over 20 years ago. At 75, his health has deteriorated. He can no longer run with a wild animal. Now his main activities are office research, writing books, and giving lectures. However, this serene old man never wearies of reiterating, it is unwise to perceive the wolf, or nature as a whole, as inherently wicked or ruthless in any of its forms. Like all other living beings, these animals live according to their nature and never take more from nature than they need. The only and most dangerous animal that stands out from this harmonious picture, and because of its greed and unpredictability, threatens all the others, is man. But his behavior is studied by completely different scientists. And yet, the very fact that all these people exist gives us a chance to hope that one day animals will stop being a source of profit for humans and will take their rightful place, assigned to them by nature itself. That's all for today. If you have anything to add, share it below in the comments. It will be interesting to read. And see you in future episodes on our channel.